Ultimately, you cannot control how people respond to what it is that you decide to do for yourself. So the other day I got this DM and I feel like it's really good and it's important for us to have this conversation. So let me read the DM and we'll get into my response to it. A man breaks up with a woman because he's not happy and doesn't believe they are made for each other, but she's a great woman. The woman doesn't want the relationship to end. She goes into a deep depression and expresses to her now ex that she can't eat, she's having trouble sleeping, she's throwing up, and she can't work. She actually gets sent home from work and expresses how she feels like she can't live without the person. The ex feels heartbroken because he feels like he is the cause of this and wants her to be happy and still cares for her well-being, but doesn't know what to do. What advice would you give the man? First things first, what I've realized about us as black men is that we get so accustomed to putting everyone else's needs ahead of our own that when we finally prioritize our needs and what we feel like is right for ourselves, we can end up sometimes having this immense feeling of guilt, like we did something wrong, even though we know logically what we did, what was best for ourselves. Because we've been programmed to be providers, we don't feel comfortable putting ourselves first. And it can lead to us feeling extremely guilty. It can lead to us doing things that we know are not in our best interest. And I want you to understand that it is okay for you to prioritize yourself, even if it makes other people uncomfortable, even if it means that you have to deprioritize someone else's needs.
It's fine.
I'm not telling you to not be emotionally available for other people. I'm not telling you to not be emotionally aware of how other people are feeling. But what I am telling you is that you should feel comfortable prioritizing yourself, and you should not feel guilty for doing something that you know was in your best interest. We have to get comfortable with putting ourselves first. There's nothing wrong with doing that. You actually have to do that. It's important for you to practice that. Be emotionally aware. Emotional awareness is good. Understand how people are feeling, how people are responding to what it is that you decided to do for yourself. But make sure that you don't cross over into making yourself responsible for somebody else's mental health, because that is a slippery slope. And ultimately, you cannot control how people respond to what it is that you decide to do for yourself. If you decided to break up with this person and you know that that was the best decision for yourself and you communicated that in a healthy way, in an effective way, in a way that wasn't disrespectful or insulting, and that person then took that and is now depressed, overly sad, can't function, cannot operate, I don't mean to sound dismissive, but that is not your responsibility. I'm not saying that you can't help and support, but what I am saying is that it has to stop there. You have to be able to effectively create boundaries after a breakup. All you can really do is offer your support and offer resources. But I strongly suggest you implement boundaries, right? And so what do boundaries look like after a breakup? Basically, your ex shouldn't be calling you and texting you at all times of the day, all times of the night. They shouldn't be popping up on you unannounced, and they shouldn't be emotionally dumping. What does emotionally dumping mean? Emotional dumping is basically when somebody hits you up randomly and just goes on a rant or a vent session without your consent, without even asking you if you were prepared to have that kind of conversation. So these kind of things, you need to have boundaries in place, because what ends up happening is when you break up with someone and you guys are still operating as if you were in a relationship, it makes it that much harder for you to move on and ultimately for them to move on. You have to understand, you're not their therapist.
Never, never, never.
You guys aren't even together anymore. So you have to be able to set boundaries so you guys can move on with your lives. Boundaries do not mean that you don't talk to them ever again. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying you have to cut them off completely, but what I am saying is that you have to limit how and when you do speak to them, because by not doing that, you're making it that much harder for you to move on and for them to move on. And the truth is, breakups should not lead to depression. Don't get me wrong, breakups are difficult for all parties involved. It's normal to be sad. But if you find that a breakup is leading you to depression, that means you have a deeper issue. And that issue is probably stemming from your approach to relationships. And I'm begging you to dig deeper than just the breakup. Because a lot of times what we end up doing, especially as men or just people in general, is that When we go through depression, we look at the last thing that happened and we say, I'm depressed because of this. I'm depressed because of the breakup. But the truth is, the breakup was just a catalyst. The breakup just brought what you needed to address to the surface. And because you're only looking at the surface level issue, which is the breakup, you're not really identifying what's underneath that's actually causing you to feel depressed. You're depressed not because of the breakup. You're depressed because of what the relationship meant to you or what the relationship signified for you. A lot of us use relationships as a crutch for all the unhealed parts of ourselves. All the love we didn't get as a child, all the insecurities we feel about ourselves. The breakup leads to depression because you're now forced to deal with all of the things that you are using the relationship to fill. All of the trauma that was underneath that you just packed the relationship on top of, you're now forced to deal with those things in your individuality, and it's causing depression. You don't have your crutch anymore. You don't have that thing that was filling the void anymore. And so depression is a result because your trauma is now surfacing. All the trauma that you pushed down, that you packed the relationship on top of, is now surfacing. So like I said, breakups are tough. It's normal to be sad, but that breakup should not lead to depression. And if they are leading to depression, you have to dig deeper. You have to ask yourself why. And the reason why I know this is because I've had to do it myself. I've gone through this. Most often, the relationships or the breakups that lead to depression are the ones that come from codependent relationships. Codependent relationships make for the worst, the absolute worst breakups. And these kind of relationships are the relationships where people are saying things like, I can't live without you. You complete me. When those people break up, most of the times they're depressed. Whoever was codependent or whether they were codependent on each other, most of the times when they break up, they are depressed. That's why they'll either hop right back into a relationship together again, or they won't know how to function when they're in their individuality, when they're in their single season, which will lead to them serial dating, whole phase, or whatever the case may be, however we want to classify it in this generation, and trying to find somebody else to fill that void. People that come out of codependent relationships struggle heavily because they really did need that person to live. When somebody says, I can't live without you, they mean that. They mean that. And so the depression that comes from that breakup is stemming from the fact that they're struggling to operate in their own individuality. They need someone else to make them feel whole. You have to learn to live without by relying on what you have within. And what that means is you have to learn to operate in your individuality. You have to learn how to give yourself all of the love that you are looking for in relationship, all of the love that you're looking to dish out to other people. You have to learn how to give that to yourself. You have to learn how to take care of yourself. You have to learn how to take care of all parts of yourself. And you have to learn how to prioritize yourself without feeling guilty for doing that.
Bottom line, that's what it's all about.
To wrap this up, I just want y'all to know it is okay to be single. It's okay to be alone. Feel comfortable being in your single season. Do not feel like you need a person to complete you. You don't need anybody to complete you. You are already complete the way you are. People should come into your life to complement what you already have going on, to add supplemental value to the value that you already have within. So learn to live without by living within. And black man, don't feel uncomfortable with prioritizing yourself. There is nothing wrong with prioritizing yourself and your needs. And with that being said, it's okay to not be okay. I want y'all to leave any comments for any new videos that y'all like me to make below. Send me a DM on Instagram if you want me to make a video about a topic. And yeah, man, let's just keep on healing. Let's keep on growing. Please join the community. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.
Sometimes I know you feel like you ain't got nobody to speak to. Shoulder to lean on somebody you could preach to. Know you need to hear it, my brother, I love you. We got way too much to live for.